Hello. So, in the last two videos in the series, I've discussed how you can go about day one of website design in 10 days. I've created some pattern files here. I can see, but you can't. That's just one screen that's available to us, one scene, whatever we call it in terminology that OBS uses. It's scene. So the makeshift arrangement have made us pasting screenshots here, maybe pasting relevant images here as needed. Now the idea is that you want to be able to do those three things with any given vendor. Three things to revise them are write your static, write your dynamic, write your server. The third step is called deployment. The deployment, if you know, is from military terminology. For one example, there can be other um, sources, but that is one. Right. So you want to be looking at writing static files for content that you want to be reported over the internet without a lot of interactive functionality. So, for example, if you want file transfer, simple file transfer, which would be things like transmitting PDF documents, or I mean, making available PDF documents and other sorts of files, depending on how much you know about this. So, file types, line types, and file types. File types. Again, I not being very good with the formatting and writing, but yeah. So depending on how much you know about it, you will have executable files. You'll have installer files. You have exe. You have MSIs. That is Windows, and then you can make a file executable in Linux by changing the permissions and that sort of stuff. So static is content that you would like to share over the internet, and that's all there is to it. You don't want to be thinking about, for example, what if the user wants to make a playlist out of the songs that you're making available. So this is the kind of use case you're looking at when you're talking about static content. Okay, so we'll discuss more from each of the things that I've said today. I've said quite a lot of things. I concede. So let's get started with revising what I've gone through in these two videos that I've posted today. Okay. First of all, so in the first video, I went through day one, in which I said your purpose is to be. I started actually, I did not complete it, but I said that you need to look at the possibilities, and you want to basically limit your scope. For example, I said you don't want to be thinking about security too much, because that's a big area. That's one, and that's just one of the many things that you have to look at when you're coming up with such a complex system as a website is, right from the back end to the front facing software that you have on your end user's client browser, which can be command line interface based or graphical user interface based. It can be a hardware machine, it can be a printer, but I don't want to make it too technical, nor too high sounding, or whatever you can describe it as. I don't want to make it appear as if I am some sort of veteran professional in the domain, for example. Okay, so purpose, which cogs and wheels you want to tinker with in these 10 days, and you want to be able to do everything in anything and everything programmatically. These things are things that you keep in mind all the time, and these govern every design decision that you take. And that is an important phrase that I need to write down, and I can again process this entire thing programmatically. I won't bother with things like sequencing of so alphabetically sorting out these things, the vocabulary I'm designing and things like that. So it'll be a suboptimal use of time, if you see what I mean. So I've had this network thing coming up. That's why so much of lag. Sorry about that. But network issues are a routine. So here I was talking about design decisions. So yeah, let's get back to what we were discussing in the last video. In the last video, I talked about three things that you need to do with any vendor. You have to get your static content. Static content can be your HTML and FTP content. FTP content is file transfer protocol, as the name suggests. You want to dedicate it for transferring files between your client and server. And the idea is that over HTTP you can files you can make transfers of files as well. And the downloads page that you see on the languagefollow.com, that is about serving files over HTTP. So the language hello.com downloads. If you click one of the links, these transfers occur. The transfers start. Now, how a file is transferred over a network, it's a very interesting and big topic. You might have heard of P2P sharing. You might have heard of buffering. You might have heard of streaming. The latter two, in terms of in the context of video, in context of video content, content in context of video content. Okay, and there are other scenarios as well. You are looking at M3U8 files, I guess, which are indexes for .ps files. So that is something you come across when you're talking about downloading video files, which are broken up into smaller chunks. Let's use the term chunks. Okay. And there is one more word that you need. I mean, there is a whole dictionary of words that you need to know in order to be able to talk about it, sound like a pro or whatever it is. But packet. So that is from networking. This is computer networking. I need to arrange this vocabulary thematically, among other things. Design decisions is altogether something different, right? But I'm making the document in front of you, so please bear with me on that aspect, in that respect. Okay, so static content, you want to be able to organize your data content, whatever you're serving, in ways that allow the user to seamlessly work with your website. It doesn't have to be pretty. It doesn't have to be the most aesthetic looking website on the internet, but it does have to be intuitive in terms of how this information is organized, how links work, and how your interaction occurs when the user goes from one part of the page to another part of the website, maybe, or things like that. So let's look at static content a bit more, and then turn to some other aspects. So templates, templates and templating. HTML has to be written by hand. Nobody in the world likes repetitive work, unless we are talking about um, you can find typing test. Okay, typing test. Unless you want to deliberately develop this habit of 50 WPM words per minute or more, unless you're specifically focusing on that, you wouldn't want to type out things you find repetitive work. And that's why you have automation and programmatically organizing your data generation, or organizing your HTML document and so on. I've already given you one piece of homework. I could give you the answer right away, but I don't want to, because I am posting the third video on this day, right? So I'll let there be some time before I actually discuss the answer. It's out there. You just need to search. It's nothing. An artificial intelligent bot will not be able to tell you, for example. Okay, so anyway, HTML has to be written by hand. Nobody in the world likes repetitive work, and you will have HTML ready for you. You can have boilerplate, that's the term they use. Boilerplate code available on GitHub, for example. And you can just copy and paste, and you can have HTML saved, which you can edit later, right? So for example, you can always have the tags here, the tags that you can see, and you can fill out the data that changes, right? So in order to program this, you want templates, you want a templating engine. What they use these days, among other solutions out there, is Jinja 2, Jinja 1, Jinja 2, and things like that. Now, I'm giving you this because I know about it. You look it up and you find out other templating engines as well. These are one of the popular choices. These are the most talked about, so that's why you can see them here. For example, again, this is a good question: how much frequency affects what you know? Yeah, so that's an aside. Side. How much frequency affects what you know? Okay, so that is, for example, you may create a web app out of this. So that's a project idea. That's an exercise, if not a business idea. Let's say I wouldn't I wouldn't encourage a business idea around this kind of thing, because a lot of it is already there. So avoid adding to the redundancy. Relative path I'll put down, because relative path is something very basic. So career new, yeah, great. So we were talking about static content, and static content is something that you don't change over time, don't change with user actions, and you just serve from your storage can be on the server, storage can be on a different server, depends on the design. And it's a different layer altogether. It's a different layer of abstraction, I should say, and it's not um, hierarchical in the same way as your OSI model is. So Jinja 2 is something that you want to know about, and Jinja 2 is something that lets you automate, something that lets you create HTML programmatically, HTML creation. So the thing looks like this. I'll give you an example. Jinja template. For example, extends base. I'm using conventional names. Extend base.html, assuming that this is available. It's called namespace. And namespace is basically what variables are accessible to you in a given scope. Scope, namespace. It's nothing, nothing to, be amazed about. It's just scope is what's the environment for variables. Namespaces, all of these names are available for use in given scope or scopes. Now again, this is from my knowledge of C and CPP. So this does C, CPP, Java, and this is from more than a decade ago. I'm not looking it up for you. It's too basic for us to spend time on it. The idea is that in the context of this particular thing, when you say extends, for example, so extends has to be recognized as something that does something else. So extends is a name of a function that calls some piece of software that does something to this using this argument, so using operates on this, right? It's an operator. You know operators from mathematics. You know that addition is an operator. So plus, the plus symbol requires you to have two operands. Requires two operands. It's a binary operator, and you need two things to add together. You need two things to be able to get a result out of this. You can have unary operators. Unary operators are not unary not. So proposition and not proposition. So tilde is a symbol that is used in some contexts, and I'll just write not proposition. Okay. Now this is too abstract, I guess. So unary not is, this is true, not the case that this is true. Now I don't want to talk about philosophy and any of that, and what's the difference between this is not true and not the case that this is true. That is from philosophy. That gets into philosophy. This is not true. Yeah, so for our purposes we can say that this is the same as not the case that this is true. Okay. So operators, operands, addition and negation, right? Binary operators, unary operators, they can be ternary operators. Ternary operators, let's because we are dealing with this ternary operator, would be SVO maybe. So something that takes so let's say that clause, that SVO. So that predicate 1 maybe is the subject, predicate 2 or argument 2 doesn't matter, that doesn't really matter. That is your verb, and then predicate 3, that is your object. This bit goes, this is specific to NLP. In the scheme of things that I have here. Okay, so let's say I define an abstraction in which this is my sentence structure. Okay, so models.py sentence structure. Again, this is a schematic. Okay, schema, and this is an abstract representation, ABS track representation. The implementation will be different, okay, and there will be modifications and things like that. So as I'm saying, there is automation of HTML creation, and for this you use, for example, such a Ginger template in which you have extends based on HTML. I will have block header head in addition to what I have in my head tags. So I might have some styling information, so style sheets that I request from CDN, content delivery network, or I fetch from my own, or I load from my own server. It doesn't matter. From a CDN, it'll take much more time. Add to the latency. Latency is again networking terminology, and I'm using it in a general sense here because network latency is different from the time it will add to fetch the JavaScript file or other resources from a CDN. But blockhead, and okay, you have here block dot super. Now this can change. You'll have to look up the documentation. Okay, the comments go like this. Comments in Ginger syntax, Ginger 2 syntax go like this. Docs. Okay, see the documentation. See the documentation. Always refer to the original to the official documentation. Blockhead end block. So you start a block, you end a block, and you add new things that are specific to this page. So maybe new things specific to this page are about me text. Okay, so let's assume that this is an about page and I want to write about me. So I am Bharat, right? That's what I might write. This is a variable from Python file associated with it, from the Python file, from a relevant Python file. Okay, that's I right here. So again, this is a comment in Jinja 2. So you just have to learn that this is the way you write comments in particular language. Jinja 2, the comment looks like this, and comments in programming languages. So English for, or yeah, English for code. NLP spacey dot load n core web xm. What it does is this loads a class, probably a class, I'll have to look it up, but an instantiator or instantiator of a class, instantiator of a class, instantiator, whatever the spelling is, of a class that lets you process natural language sentences in English, written in English. Now, when I say instantiator class, what I mean is, okay, so this is programming in its full, I guess, flow, but class and then instantiator, and instantiation, instances. So that is object-oriented programming, but what I'm trying to say is instantiate, and I don't think I should go into that stuff here for later. This is not because I can't explain it to you right now. This is because I don't want to get along another thread altogether. I've already mentioned threads and processes in the second video, right? So spacey.load encode WebSM, it lets you have functionality. So I'll put it like this. It lets you have the statement, the assignment, let's call it assignment, using equals operator, lets you have functionality to process English language sentences for operations such as getting parts of speech and so on. The details of the operations, arguably complex or just complex, have been abstracted away so that I can work on, or you can work on, we can work on a different plane in the hierarchy, or whichever way you want to metaphorize it, or whichever metaphor. Okay, I'll leave it to you. So this is what comments do. They give you answers to what this code does. Okay, what the code does, what the code block, code, etc. does. Statement, etc. does. Okay, so comments in Python start with this pound symbol, hash symbol, whatever it is called, sharp, C sharp, right? C sharp is a language. Sharp is from music, if you know this. But comments in Python, and comments are multi-line and single line comments, single line, multi-line comments in Python are like this. They start with this and end with this. So this is not the best way, but yeah, this is not what I. Yeah, but you have three single quotation marks. So multi-line. Let's not spend more time on this. Okay. So multi-line comments look like this. You can span them across various lines. This is a single line. And then you have JavaScript, JS comments like this and like this. Then you have HTML comments. HTML comments, I made a mistake in the video before. So HTML comments are like this, and they end here. And like this. This is an HTML comment. Okay. So that is what you're looking at. Comments give you information about the code, what it does, for example, what is it doing, why is it there, and other housekeeping jobs requirements. Okay. Coming back to what is looking at static content, you talk about data that doesn't change, but repeating this code, repeating HTML, rewriting the HTML, which is simply the same thing, which is simply the copy, which is simply a copy of something that you've already written. You would want to use templating, you would want to use templates, and that's why you have things like Jinja script, Jinja templating engine, and things like that. Template is basically the same idea as templates in Word, templates in Excel, and other software you might have come across. So you have a format prepared for you, and you just use the same format every time. I hope I've been making sense, because this is at a level, yeah, I don't want to use the term level, but maybe I'll organize it in a different way some other time. Let's go through it for the time being. Okay, so templating, so many terms included, so many terms covered. Templates, templating engine. Great. So you want to be using templates, you want to be using templating engines instead of writing out HTML every time you want to present HTML content or static content to your user. That is the takeaway. I'll write it here. Takeaway video 3 of N. You want to use templating Jinja 2 to avoid rewriting same copies of HTML. Now, the way it actually happens, the way you can actually automate, or the way you can even pass over templating, is using string manipulation to generate HTML. Sorry. Now that's a separate topic altogether, and I've given that to you as homework, so I'm trying to avoid talking about it. But I can give you some things without letting on too much. So string manipulation, it's the phrase string manipulation, and it's worth spending time on, and that's why I'll just okay make it a separate page. Yeah, right. I'm not very good at using software, I guess. So string manipulation, what is it? So that brings me to a very important, the most important topic, in fact, regular expressions. So given the text, I am Alice in Wonderland. Alice in Wonderland does, yeah, this is Wonderland. Okay, yeah, this is, yeah, Wonderland does amazing things. Wonderland is Alice's abode of piety. Therefore, I must say Alice is in Wonderland. Now this is a piece of text that I've given you. This is your raw.txt file. Okay, so in I guess in byte representation, it'll look like this. So when you read, for example, response.body, it can be Django, Flask, or Baba Boo. Doesn't matter. Okay, it's not the best way to talk about things, but the point I'm trying to make is that it's wonderful if you take it in your stride. That's the spirit. Okay. So response.body, response client server model, ACK. Okay, so server, or in fact client to server. I'm here, kind of, that's how they illustrate it, but yeah, client to server. Then the ACK is for acknowledge, server to client, server to client. That's a basic handshake. Okay, that's what they use in networking. So the idea is this, that's the idea. Implementation can be different. Okay, implementation depends on what the protocol is. So once that handshake is done, ready to transfer data. So data can be HTML, it can be image, it can be gzip, that is except encoding header. Okay, encoding header. So what are you allowed to transfer between the client and the server? So this is where you have and MIME types. Okay, and MIME types. Now I'm presenting to you these things in such a manner because I want to talk about, yeah, this is the bad part about this. I am used to shifting it, indenting it instead of replacing it. So except encoding header and MIME types, so what you're looking at is something like 80 commands. Now 80 commands are things you see as *101 on your or star or hash, I don't know, on your phone to get all your plan details, things like that. 80 commands. Okay, that is why I'm giving you this instead of talking about hi, I'm server, hello server, I'm client, and all the explain it to me like I'm 5-year-old stuff. Okay, so you're not a 5-year-old after all. So depends on how you want to see it, how the client and server communicate, so to speak. So you have a file in binary representation, or in bytes it'll be represented like this. In binary representation it'll be zeros and ones, so that's not what I meant to say, but it's not a slip of tongue either for detectives. So byte representation, you have data treated as a stream. So stream, that is what I want to add here. Stream and byte stream. And yes, this is related to streaming, the one that I've mentioned in the context of video, ICO video, right? I said, yeah. So see, okay, stream, byte stream. Okay, cf c stream byte stream. Okay, so what we're looking at here is you are taking it as a sequence of bytes instead of a particular another particular representation. So you can use it the way you want. So if you read bytes in a file, you treat it as a general purpose data body, let's call it, and you process it according to the way the file is. It can be an image file, it can be a PNG, portable networks graphics, and SVG, support vector graphics, and JPG. I don't recall the, I don't know the, yeah, I can't recall the full form, but JPG is another one, and you have compression. Compression is something that gzip I've already mentioned. So compression is something that you need to know, right? So compressed images are represented by types such as JPG. When you want compression, you want to go for JPG and other formats maybe. So there is a particular way of representing data. Byte stream is one of them, and we are looking this at this raw.text as a byte stream. So once I read it as a text file, okay, once I get it from response.body and read it as a text file, once I read it as a text file with a certain encoding, I can start processing it. Now, encoding is important because there is accent on French syllables or French orthography. In French orthography have basically non-ASCII characters. So everything other than Latin. There is actually something called Latin encoding, but that is even further back in the past. Okay, so types of encoding is what you read. Encoding. So you see, there's so much information that I'm transferring, and again, you can posit it, you can present it the way you want it, but that's not my concern at the moment. Encoding non-ASCII characters. So for example, you have UTF. You want UTF because that allows for other languages also, among other things. So UTF-8, right? And it allows for all sorts of symbols other than if you want a tick mark, for example, you'll have you may have to have UTF. If you want a tick mark with a particular twist to it, maybe, because tick mark may be part of ASCII. I'll have to look it up. Okay, so I can actually go and fetch it for you. I'll go to a browser and just all ASCII symbols or characters, whatever you call them, doesn't matter. Complete table of ASCII characters. Yeah, so basically there is a library in Python, string ASCII. You can import it from there, and that's it, print it. So I don't want to go to an HTML document and fight with the formatting to extract data, right? That's a waste of time. So print. It's as simple as this. If you run this in your code editor, okay, that's not I wanted. Okay, I'd like to remove this formatting. Yeah, lovely. So import string, and So this is an example of an instance where you want to be lazy because you don't want to search how you delete how you remove the formatting, and instead find a makeshift arrangement, which is what I've just done. Okay, import string. So this it's from DigitalOcean. I got it, and there are lots of other. So yeah, lots of other things there. So ASCII is this. This is ASCII. This is what I was looking for, and this is at least some ASCII that we want to look at, if not all of it. Okay, font color white, and this is the most interesting thing I'd like you to look at. No. Yeah, so as you can probably see, we have string or white space and these escape sequences. So slash x 0b slash x 0c, and this is what you're looking at when you're talking about low level programming and when you're talking about character encoding and related aspects of the entire process. Character sets, so that's charset. Sorry about that. So charset is very much there in your HTML. Sorry. So I think I'll take a break here, and I'll resume in the next one. We'll continue talking about static content a bit, and then move on to other parts of the three stage process in which you have writing static, writing dynamic, and deploying. So as you can see, it's already 8 pages, and I have so many things I'd like to define. I've already added so much to the vocabulary, and that is how you develop a program. That is how you come up with an algorithm. You have border stemmer. That is a good place to start. You have Ortsu's algorithm. That's a mathematical way to calculate cluster, I think, means and things like that. So it's part of k-means clustering, I guess. But that's information from more than a decade ago that I'm trying to retrieve. So Ortsu's algorithm. Okay, so that's it for this particular video. I'll see you in the next one. Thank you.